Lord Chairman.
My Lords, we now come to the last business of the day, which are questions on the answer to a Commons urgent question on support to sub-postmasters wrongly convicted of the Post Office Horizon scandal. The answer itself will not be repeated. For members participating remotely, microphones will unmute shortly before they are to speak. Please accept any on-screen prompt to unmute. I remind the House that our normal courtesies in debate still apply in this new hybrid way of working. Please keep questions and answers short. Questions on the answer to an urgent question in the House of Commons Tuesday the 9th of June to support the sub-postmasters wrongly convicted in the Post Office Horizon scandal. Lord Stevenson of Balmacara.
The whole country owes a considerable debt of gratitude to Kevin Jones MP, Andrew Bridgen MP and the Noble Lord Arbuthnot, who have been campaigning tirelessly to expose this appalling scandal for over 7 years. Too many sub-postmasters, often respected and hard-working pillars of their local communities, have been imprisoned, and many have been ruined financially, physically and mentally. By settling in mediation before the Horizon trial judgment was made public, the Post Office avoided public scrutiny, and the facts of their transference of operational risk to sub-postmasters, persistent denials of fault, and coercive behaviours was covered up. Thanks to recent TV and radio programmes, we now have a lot of detail, but much more clearly needs to be uncovered. My Lords, the question we have to answer first is whether the proposed independent review will do what is needed, as it's not a public inquiry under the Inquiries Act 2005. Can the Noble Lord the Minister confirm that the review will have the same powers as a public inquiry would have had under statute to compel the disclosure of documentary evidence and to compel witnesses to come before it to give evidence in public? Secondly, can the Noble Lord the Minister confirm that this review, which presumably is being set up by ministers, will have sufficient power to investigate the same ministers who were responsible for the Post Office over the relevant period? And can he confirm that all the costs of the victims of this scandal, who may be asked to testify and provide evidence, and many of whom have yet to receive the full compensation they seek, will be met?
Well, let me first of all join with the Noble Lord in paying tribute to all those members from both houses that have laboured for many years to draw attention to this unfolding scandal. Whilst the terms of the reference for the review chime with that of an inquiry, we are undertaking a review in order to allow progress to be achieved in an accelerated timeframe. And I can tell the Noble Lord that the Post Office have committed to fully cooperate with the review, and ministers will hold them to that commitment. The purpose of this non-statutory inquiry is to ensure that there is a public summary of the failings that occurred at the Post Office, drawing on the judgments from the Horizon case and by listening to those that have been most effective, and to make sure that those lessons have genuinely been learned and cannot happen again. With regard to documentary evidence, as I said, the Post Office are expected to cooperate fully with this inquiry.
Lord Fox.
Can I associate myself with Lord Stevenson's comments regarding the campaigners on this case? Because hundreds of people have had their lives ruined, sometimes ended, by this terrible scandal. The Prime Minister in February committed to getting to the bottom of this, and so we have to take that at face value. But in answer to the Noble Lord Stevenson's question, I don't think it was entirely clear the powers that this independent inquiry will have. Yes, the Post Office has committed, but will this inquiry actually have legal powers to command people to give evidence and to sequester evidence? Because unless it is able to do that, I don't think the Prime Minister is going to get his wish, and we're not going to get to the bottom of this. So I understand the time element, but can the Minister really reassure the House that this will be an inquiry with teeth?
Well, we are committed to getting to the bottom of this scandal, and I can tell the noble lord that yes, the Post Office have committed to cooperate fully with the inquiry. Ministers will expect them to do that. We expect others involved to cooperate with the inquiry as well, and if we need to take further action to make sure that they cooperate, then we will be prepared to look at it.
Baroness Neville-Rolfe.
The Horizon case is an appalling matter. And it was, as I've mentioned before, the most worrying issue that I had to deal with as a minister, because it involved many respectable individuals with no record of criminal activity, and who we now find, many of whom have had their life ruined. Now, does my noble friend, the minister, agree that the immediate need from information already available is to remove the Post Office's unusual right to act as a prosecutor themselves, and to do this forthwith?
My noble friend makes a good point, but the Post Office's powers to bring a private prosecution are not specific to the Post Office. The Post Office has the same rights as any other person, whether an individual or a company, to bring a private prosecution. I can tell her that the Post Office has no current private prosecutions that they are conducting, and they have provided assurances to ministers that they have no plans to indulge in any further prosecutions.
Lord Craig of Radley.
My Lords, depending on the court appeals, the Post Office may be liable to pay further compensation. Did they have insurance against computer system failure? Is it obligatory for businesses to take out insurance against any serious computer malfunction? And if not, does this Horizon scandal suggest that it is required?
Well, the Post Office operates as an independent business. As you would expect, it does have all the necessary insurances in place for a company of this kind. It is not, however, obligatory for businesses, including the Post Office, to take out insurance against computer malfunctions or liabilities to third parties which could result from such malfunctions. It is therefore unlikely that any of the Post Office's insurances would provide cover for any compensation payments the business may be required to partake in.
Lord Arbuthnot of Edram.
My Lords, when did the government's representative on the Post Office board first know that the Post Office had privileged access to sub-postmasters' accounts so that the Post Office or Fujitsu could alter those accounts at will without the sub-postmasters being aware of it? Was it from the Ernst & Young management letter to the board of 27th March 2011, or was it earlier than that? And if my noble friend doesn't know the answer to that, please would he write to me?
Well, let me first of all pay tribute to the work that the noble lord has done both in the other place and in this House to draw attention to this unfolding scandal. I can tell him that the issue of privileged access was discussed throughout the Horizon case and was highlighted in the Horizon Issues judgment. The Ernst & Young management letter that he refers to was issued before Post Office Limited was separated from the Royal Mail Group, and at the time there was no government representative on the board. The first government representative was appointed to the board of the Post Office in 2012. Government was aware that the information that it received, such as that by the forensic accountant's second sight in 2013, that branch records could be accessed remotely. However, we were then advised that any transactions entered remotely would be visible to sub-postmasters in branch. As far as I am aware, Government was only made aware that this was incorrect in early 2019 via witness statements that were used by Fujitsu in the court case.
Lord Brown of Ladyton.
Lords, it's a privilege to follow the noble Lord Arbuthnot on this issue for all of the reasons that have been mentioned before, and he deserves significant recognition for his effective leadership on this issue. Lords, while supporting the call for an inquiry, already every parliamentarian, including every minister, believes that those damaged by this scandal deserve to be exonerated and properly compensated. So how much additional evidence does the government need before that can be achieved? For more than a decade, while covering up the truth, the Post Office spent in excess of £100 million maintaining the convictions and the impoverishment of hundreds of innocent sub-postmasters. Not one director or senior executive has been made to account. What does the government, who owns the post office, plan to do about the shocking failure of corporate governance?
Well, the Horizon IT system was put in place in 1999, with the first issues being raised by sub-postmasters in the early 2000s. And Mr Justice Fraser has considered what happened over this period and set out his findings in considerable detail in the court case. Of course, the senior directors responsible at the time of the prosecutions were undertaken against sub-postmasters are no longer at the postmasters. Any further proceedings against such individuals is a matter for the Crown Prosecution Service and for the courts and the justice system.
Lord Mann.
Experienced, knowledgeable, of impeccable character and having no vested interest would seem to be the appropriate qualities required for the person to chair this inquiry. Can the Minister think of anyone better suited than the former postman Alan Johnson?
I thank the noble lord for his question. We are actively considering who should chair the inquiry at the moment, and as soon as I have further information, I will revert to the noble lord.
My Lords, I beg to move that the House do now adjourn.
That the House do now adjourn.
The proceeding has ended. The proceeding has ended.